detecting skill gaps for effective upskilling and reskilling. In the rapidly evolving landscape of digital transformation and knowledge-driven work, organizations around the world are confronted with a fundamental challenge. Not all employees possess the competencies required to thrive in the new environment. Technologies evolve faster than traditional training systems. Job roles are redefined by automation and artificial intelligence, and the knowledge economy demands deeper critical thinking, adaptability, and interdisciplinary skills. In this shifting context, it becomes increasingly clear that merely providing training programs is no longer sufficient. Organizations must begin with something far more fundamental, a rigorous and thoughtful skill gap analysis. This process sits at the heart of the trace phase and the talent framework, guiding individuals and institutions to clearly understand where they are and what is required for future readiness. Skill gap analysis is more than a technical diagnostic. It is a strategic reflection of human capability in relation to future demands. It begins by mapping the competencies currently possessed by employees, contrasting them with the competencies demanded by their current or future roles. The difference between these two sets, the gap, reveals the developmental priorities that enable upskilling and reskilling to be targeted, effective, and transformative. Without this clarity, organizations risk investing heavily in training programs that fail to create meaningful value, leaving employees unprepared and systems stagnating. A deeper look into the nature of skill gaps shows that they are not merely deficits in technical proficiency. Skill gaps can emerge from outdated workflows, rigid habits, limited exposure, or insufficient confidence in using new tools. As work becomes more digital and knowledge-intensive, these gaps widen unless they are intentionally addressed. Skill gaps may also vary among individuals, even within the same role, influenced by experience, learning style, professional background, and personal motivation. Detecting these gaps, therefore, requires a nuanced and human-centered approach, one that sees employees not as uniform resources, but as individuals with unique trajectories of growth. The first layer of skill gap analysis examines the competencies an individual currently possesses. This might include digital literacy, data literacy, communication ability, teamwork, problem-solving capabilities, or specialized technical skills required within a specific domain. The assessment can be conducted through various methods: performance reviews, self-assessments, peer evaluations, observation, project outcomes, or automated skill diagnostics. The goal is to establish an honest and accurate portrait of the individual's present capability. This clarity becomes the initial point of orientation, where one stands before embarking on the journey of transformation. The second dimension of analysis focuses on identifying the competencies needed for the role, either the role an employee currently occupies or the role they aspire to step into. In the digital era, job descriptions evolve quickly. Roles that once required manual execution now require digital navigation. Roles that once centered on routine tasks now require analytical insight and decision-making. Roles that once prized experience now reward agility and learning capacity. To understand role expectations, organizations must analyze industry trends, technological developments, and strategic organizational goals. By mapping these expectations against the current skill profile of employees, leaders can foresee gaps long before they become performance problems. The width of the competency gap, the difference between what an employee can do and what the role demands, serves as a critical variable in determining the urgency and type of development that is needed. A narrow gap suggests that simple training, brief upskilling, or guided learning may be sufficient. A wider gap indicates the need for sustained development, structured mentoring, or more comprehensive interventions. An extremely broad gap may signal that reskilling is necessary, preparing the individual to transition to an entirely different role rather than simply improving performance within their current role. Understanding the size of this gap allows organizations to prioritize resources, timelines, and learning strategies more intelligently. Effective skill gap analysis does not end at identifying what is missing. It must also explore how the gap can be closed. This is where the design of learning interventions becomes meaningful. Closing the competency gap can be achieved through several pathways: formal training programs, online courses, learning modules, project-based assignments, stretch roles, coaching, peer learning groups, or job rotation. The method chosen should align with the nature of the competency being developed. For example, digital skills may require hands-on practice with software tools. Leadership competencies may require mentoring and experiential learning. Analytical skills may require curated problem-solving exercises. When learning strategies are tailored to specific gaps, development becomes more targeted, efficient, and engaging for employees. It is important to recognize that upskilling and reskilling, two concepts often used interchangeably, serve different developmental purposes. Upskilling focuses on deepening or expanding the skills an employee already uses in their current role. It enhances proficiency, elevates performance, and prepares individuals for more challenging responsibilities within the same domain. For example, a marketing professional learning data analytics or customer experience design is undergoing upskilling. Reskilling, on the other hand, prepares individuals to move into different roles entirely. This becomes necessary when a job is transformed by automation, when new strategic priorities emerge within an organization, or when employees seek new career trajectories. For instance, a factory operator transitioning into a digital technician role would require reskilling. Skill gap analysis becomes a guiding compass that determines which path, upskilling or reskilling, is appropriate and necessary. Without accurate skill gap analysis, training initiatives become unfocused and ineffective. Organizations may invest in workshops that employees do not need, or they may overlook critical areas where development is essential. Such mismatches lead to wasted resources, employee frustration, and strategic stagnation. Worse, employees may be left feeling unprepared, anxious, or undervalued because the training they receive does not equip them to succeed in their evolving roles. In contrast, when skill gap analysis is done systematically, training becomes a strategic asset that empowers both the individual and the organization. Detecting skill gaps also builds a culture of transparency and growth. When employees understand the purpose behind development programs, they become more motivated to participate. They no longer see training as a compulsory activity, but as a meaningful step toward personal advancement. This creates a shift in mindset, from fear of inadequacy to enthusiasm for improvement. It encourages individuals to take ownership of their learning journey, rather than waiting for the organization to determine their development needs. Skill gap analysis provides a shared language through which employees and leaders can discuss performance, aspirations, and opportunities for growth. Moreover, skill gap analysis contributes to building organizational agility. Companies that systematically identify and close skill gaps strengthen their capability to adapt to changing markets, adopt new technologies, and respond to emerging challenges. They create internal mobility pipelines that reduce the need for external hiring, which is often more costly and less predictable. They also build resilience by ensuring that their workforce remains future-ready. In a world where talent has become a strategic differentiator, organizations that master the art of mapping and bridging skill gaps gain a powerful competitive advantage. In practice, skill gap analysis is both a reflective and collaborative process. Employees must be willing to honestly examine their strengths and limitations. Leaders must provide guidance, clarity, and support. Learning teams must design development pathways that align with strategic priorities. When these elements come together, skill gap analysis becomes not just an assessment tool, but a transformative process that reveals hidden potential, nurtures continuous learning, and builds long-term capability. The process also has an emotional dimension. For many employees, discovering a skill gap may feel intimidating. It requires vulnerability to admit what one does not yet know. This is where leadership plays a crucial role. Leaders must create an environment where development is seen as a strength, not a weakness, where growth is celebrated, and where individuals feel safe to ask for help. When the organization frames skill gaps as opportunities rather than deficiencies, employees respond with greater openness and motivation. Skill gap analysis, when integrated into the broader context of the talent framework, becomes more than a technical assessment. It becomes an invitation for individuals to trace their potential, align with meaningful direction, learn intentionally, express their growth, nurture their capabilities, and transform their roles in powerful ways. In the knowledge economy, the journey toward transformation begins with clarity, and that clarity begins with detecting what is missing and envisioning what is possible. In a world that demands continuous adaptation, learning cannot be accidental. It must be intentional, informed, and strategic. Skill gap analysis provides a foundation for this intentional growth. It ensures that every developmental effort is aligned with real needs and future opportunities. It transforms training from an administrative function into a strategic driver of innovation. Most importantly, it empowers individuals to grow into the fullest version of themselves, capable, confident, and ready to contribute meaningfully in an ever-changing world.